Hi, I am your host Mark, and this is the fourth episode of The Bedhead Producer. Today we're going to cover audio manipulation and how you would use it in a song. It's called mangling. So I've decided to do a series of tutorials on audio mangling and glitching and audio manipulation. So I'm going to show you guys how I would do this on an iPad. Ultimately, you can also rearrange your slices, which is a lot more work by hand than, instruments or plugins that do this for you. But the result is much more predictable and much more controllable by hand in most cases. So we're just going to start off with that as the first way to mangle audio or sound, because it doesn't have to be audio. It can be just sound coming out of a keyboard or a virtual instrument. But if you're going to chop it up by hand, then it needs to be converted to an audio file.
Who the hell is this bedhead producer guy? I don't need no tutorials on how to make music. I'm the goddamn devil. I can just wave my hand in the air.
So you want to know what I think of Android? That's what I think of Android.
So are you here to fool around or make some music? Because you know how I feel after I write a song? Ha! Like that. At your service.
When are you going to get to the damn tutorial? I want to learn how to mangle some audio. Glitch and... You got a banana? I'm the bedhead banana producer. I'm making you a video that's bananas about mangling audio. Yeah, I'm mangling audio like a squashed banana, but I don't make no sound when I'm squashed on the ground. So I'm making you a video. Time to get down. Yeah.
I like to fool around with audio. I call it horsing around on my iPad. Listen, I don't need no tutorial to teach me how to be a devil. You don't need to start a new YouTube channel. You don't need to point it out. Use some Australian voice that's not yours. I'm fine without you.
I found that audio files seem to be the easiest to manipulate. Besides manipulating the audio and creating spaces and cutting up the slices, you can also pitch certain slices up or down and create a scale out of something that was originally just a single note. And because you're going for a glitchy kind of unnatural effect that doesn't sound like one would normally play on an instrument, it's okay if there's large pitch gaps that would normally have artifacts and sound weird and computery. Because you're not going for a natural sound, you're going for something that's obviously manipulated and done in it. The first technique I'm going to cover is basically cutting audio into pieces manually, like in a DAW, that's locked to a tempo grid so that you can make the cuts at specific note values, like quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th note, 32nd notes. And so we're going to create some stutter effects, and the way that we do this is after we cut the audio into pieces, we're going to create spaces. So it's kind of like a tremolo pedal. Except where a tremolo pedal is just one speed and then on and off, we're going to create different note values. So we might have it go, which creates different rhythms than what you originally played. And I'm going to use some simple power chords. Although you can have more complex playing and faster playing underneath, it just requires a more precise cutting at that point so that you don't lose all of the notes that you played, and you can still kind of hear that there was some technique involved. With power chords, or this could also be done on keyboards with pads, any long sustaining notes or chords. It doesn't really matter because the only thing that you have that's unique throughout the piece is the attack at the very beginning and then the trail off. But other than that, everything in the middle is the same. It's just a sustained note. There are a lot more tools for this on a desktop, but I'm pretty sure that almost anything that you can do on a desktop as far as audio mangling and glitching and editing goes, you can find a way to do on the iPad. So I'm going to show you guys some different techniques, and I'm going to start really basic. So what you've been hearing in the background is me fooling around with the simple power chord progression and coming up with a fairly basic manual edit. If I were going to actually do an edit I wanted to keep, I would spend a lot more time on it, trying to come up with something as original as I could. So that, of course, is difficult. So sometimes that can just pop out accidentally really quick, and other times it just takes a lot of trying over and over and over again until you find something cool. What I ended up with in the example is I had two different stutter patterns on stereo guitars, so one on the right and one on the left. So if you listen on headphones, you can hear them bounce back and forth, and that creates a really cool rhythm, and at times, you know, almost a polyrhythm, although I only did like a minute long. I may develop that into a whole song so that I can demonstrate taking this from beginning to end and to a full song completion, or I may just do another song and use that as an example of a basic way to do it, and what I do for the song might be much more involved. But either way, I'm going to end up taking what I show you today and following it through all the way to the end to a full completed song. So then you'll be able to see the workflow and the process and what went into it. Then hopefully if you're new to this, you can try it yourself. It's been around for a while, but I still think that there's a lot of freedom in expression, and there's still original stuff to be created. Many styles of music have been around for a while, and then suddenly somebody creates something new. I would never give up on that. It's always good to strive for something that is unique. And along the way, you might come up with stuff that isn't that unique, but it's just a spin on what somebody else did. But those are lily pads to your wonderful, unique thing that one day will jump out at you. It's going to be really difficult these days to come up with something completely unique very often, because so many people are pumping out music at all times that the landscape is just crowded, and it's just a lot more difficult than it was, let's say, in the 60s or 70s when everything was new. But that doesn't mean you should stop trying, and that also doesn't mean that if you don't come across something totally unique, you just find a way of doing something that has already been done but in a unique way, or just as good or better than anybody else. That's fine too. It's all about expression. It's not a competition.
My mama asked me, why do I spend so much money on iPad apps for music? I told her I try to get all the apps I can get my hands on so I can make some more good music, yeah? Rock on. Now don't get your head all in a twist. About that money you're spending is for a good cause, y'all. Rock on! Mofos!
Okay, so first I'm going to play the power chord progression without any glitches on a short loop, and then when it comes back around the second time, I'm going to turn on the plugin called Pan and Tremolo in Cubase, and it's a Cubasis plugin, and then you'll see that I automated that, and that's kind of cool all by itself in a glitchy way. And then after that, I'm going to add another step, which will be the Cubasis spin effects. And the spin effects have several buttons. One of them is a record spin, and the other is a stutter that goes dut-dut. Whenever you push it, it just stops the music and goes dut-dut-dut-dut. So it's basically like a double mute really quick. And then there's also a granular button, which is the green one, that changes the chord from a da to a by slowing it down and making it like this granular thing. And another important thing that really adds a nice final touch is this plugin has a filter that you can either use a low pass, a band pass, or a high pass filter. I'm using a low pass. And so the white ball that you see flying across the screen on the top of the plugin is my finger going across and triggering the filter. And then all of the red buttons are something similar to a record stop. If you open it up, and if you own Cubasis and you open that up, you'll just have to play around with it and hear what they each do. They're each designed for DJs and people that want to do glitch type effects. So first let me play just the guitar solo, because I did a combination of manual and automation. Okay, now we're going to go on to the song 1 minute example that I created at the beginning of the video. That's a little more in depth, it has some bass and a couple other parts, and I used another plugin called Turnado on top of both of the techniques I just told you about, instead of the tremolo plugin. So for now, just watch as I show you the automation that I did in each guitar.
Oh crap, I don't want to use Android. I like iOS now.
Okay, now that I finished automating both tracks, I'm going to use the mix down that I played in the beginning of the song and run it through Turnado standalone, just to show you what you might do as far as glitch effects after the fact.
crazy. I mean bananas. Over all this new iOS stuff, making music is fun again.
Lastly, I'm going to finish off this video with the topic that there are standalone programs or plugins that are made just for rearranging slices of audio to change certain riffs into a completely new composition, and one of them is called Egoist, also by Sugar Bytes, who also made Turnado that I just showed off. I'm probably going to go more in depth into Turnado and Egoist at another time. For now, I just want to show you what else you can do with this same chord progression, so it can be mangled into 100 different songs.